Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm a general physician. Today we'll be talking on one topic. Once in a while you will come across we call as parathyroid gland. And later on we'll be talking regarding the disorders of parathyroid gland. There are four parathyroid glands we call superior and inferior on the two sides. It is on the posterior side of the thyroid gland. Little in short regarding the anatomy part of it, then functions, action, disorders, and investigations. Parathyroid gland is oval in shape or bean shape, or they are called teardrop appearance, or sometimes they are flat shape, particularly when they are juxtaposed to thyroid gland. Odd type of presentation. It is yellowish brown in color to reddish brown in color, or sometimes light gray tone in some of the pathological conditions. By and large, there are two pairs of glands, mostly in, we call almost 97% of the people. Very rarely you come across more than four glands. Instead of four, it may be more than four glands. That is in 13% of the people. And three glands in 3%. It may be bilobed in 5%, multilobed in 1%. The size is 5 by 3 by 2 millimeter. So it is a very tiny structure and weighing about 40 to 50 grams. All the four together will weigh about 40 to 50 grams. Basically, they are derived from what we call as a third and fourth pharyngeal pouch. Third and fourth pharyngeal pouch. Superior parathyroid gland, inferior parathyroid gland. From third pharyngeal pouch, we get an inferior parathyroid, and from the fourth pharyngeal pouch, we get a superior parathyroid gland. So superior parathyroid gland is almost fixed in its location. It is mainly subcapsular and 1 centimeter above the intersection between inferior thyroid artery and recurrent laryngeal nerve. While inferior parathyroid gland can be variable in location, it is inferior, posterior or lateral to the lower pole in 61%. By and large, it is in the lowermost part and it is posteriorly. Inferior to the lower pole is in close relation to the thyrothyromic ligaments. 26% of the people will have cervical part of thymus, means it may be present in a thymus tissue. 2% of the people will have a mediastinal position of thymus gland and 0.2% in mediastinum. In some cases, they fail to descend and locate above the position of the superior parathyroid gland, surrounded by a remnant of a thymic tissue. Superior parathyroid gland lies posterior and inferior to the parathyroid, and inferior parathyroid. Superior parathyroid lies posteriorly, while inferior parathyroid may lie anterior to recurrent laryngeal nerve. These are all positions where you will have to search for parathyroid gland. Some are paraesophageal, almost in 28%. Mediastinal are in 26% of the people. In the thymic tissue, 24%. Inside the thyroid gland, 11%. In the carotid sheath, 9%. And in a high cervical region, 2%. These are all the abnormal site of ectopic parathyroid gland. We usually call ectopic parathyroid gland. So you might have to search for those ectopic, and these are the picture which shows where it can be apart from thyroid gland tissue itself. Histological structure wise, 50% of the cells is parenchymal cells, 50% are stromal cells. Of parenchymal cells, they are chief cells which secretes parathermone. There are other cells which are called water clear cells, and there are oxyphil cells. So main cells we call as the chief cells that secretes parathyroid. So chief cells, or we call principal cells, they release parathyroid, and they are more numerous in number, smaller in size, with slightly eosinophilic cytoplasm. While oxypil cells, they are found individually or clustered in a group, and their functions is still yet not known. What they manufacture, what they secrete, it is yet not known. If you look at the parathyroid adenoma, usually it is a solitary parathyroid adenoma in almost 80 to 85% of the people, and that will give rise to what we call as a primary hyperparathyroidism. It may be oncocytic adenoma, lipoadenoma, or large clear cell adenoma, or water clear cell adenoma, or atypical adenoma, any one of these on a histopathological ground. Carcinoma is very rare, and it is only in 0.1 to 0.5% of the cases in primary hyperparathyroidism. In 30 to 50% of the people, you get a large tumor which is palpable, meaning it is almost 6 centimeter in diameter, average 3 centimeter. When it is malignant, it is surrounded, adherent to the surrounding tissue, including the soft tissue of the neck, etc. May be attached to the muscles, trachea, recurrent laryngeal nerve, etc. And it may cause metastasis. But metastases are usually rare. In a case of a pulmonary metastasis, most common is different sites, what we call as a secondary metastasis sites. It can be pulmonary metastasis. Function wise, we have already told you, main function is secretion of parathyroid, and parathyroid is concerned with blood calcium level regulation. And parathyroid will act on a bone, will act on a GI tract, and it will also have indirect effect on a kidney. So it stimulates parathyroid circulation is stimulated by hypocalcemia. If the calcium level falls, and it is inhibited by hypercalcemia. So the major function of parathyroid gland is to secrete parathyroid, which is going to regulate calcium homeostasis. Parathyroid is synthesized by parathyroid gland as a precursor, which we call as a proparathyroid hormone, and then it is converted into, finally, that proparathyroid hormone is 90 amino acids, and pre-proparathyroid hormone is 115 amino acids, which will be converted into proparathyroid hormone, which is containing 90 amino acids, and from 90 it will be converted into 84 amino acid, which is an active parathormone. So active parathormone is having 84 amino acids. Half-life is only 2 to 4 minutes. So it is rapidly metabolized. It is controlled by, secretion is controlled by calcium level, and that is acting via calcium sensing receptor. Short form it is called CASR. These are G protein coupled receptor present on the chief cells. So when calcium gets attached to that receptor, it will stimulate or it will inhibit the secretion of parathormone from chief cells. And calcium binds to this receptor and reduces intracellular AMP, cyclic AMP, and which will decrease the secretion of parathormone. So if calcium level increases, it will bind to this receptor and it will reduce intracellular cyclic AMP, and that will reduce parathormone secretion. But lack of calcium will increase the intracellular cyclic AMP, and that will stimulate the parathormone secretions. Once the parathormone secretions is stimulated, this is how. This is calcium sensing receptor which are present on the chief cells, and that will increase or decrease cyclic AMP. If cyclic AMP level are increased, you will have a release of parathormone. If cyclic AMP level are decreased, there will be no secretion of parathormone. So once the parathormone is released, it will attach to parathormone receptor, and these parathormone receptors are present in renal tubules, bones, and indirectly it is acting along with active vitamin D3 on intestine. Action wise, in a renal tubule, it will increase the absorption of calcium from GI tract. So it increases the extracellular calcium ion. On a bone, it will produce demineralization of bone. So from bone, it will throw out calcium into blood. While on a GI tract, along with vitamin D, it will increase the absorption of calcium and will increase the calcium level in an extracellular fluid. While acting on a cartilage, it will act on a cartilage via parathyroid receptors and target the cells in many other tissue also. And that is the way it is acting at kidney, bone and intestine. So parathyroid will be acting on a kidney, increases the calcium reabsorption, phosphates are thrown out, and it will help in converting vitamin D into active vitamin D3, as well as we call as a growth factor, which will be acting on a kidney, and it will decrease the reabsorption of phosphate. So phosphate will be thrown out and vitamin D3 level will be reduced. And by this particular action, it increases the calcium level and decreases the phosphate level. Vitamin D has got indirect inhibition on calcium, because vitamin D, if it is deficient, the person will develop hypocalcemia, and that hypocalcemia will stimulate parathyroid secretions. So parathyroid secretions can be stimulated by hypocalcemia and by phosphate levels. If the phosphate level increases, it will inhibit the parathyroid, and excess of calcium will inhibit the parathyroid. And on a GI tract, vitamin D will increase the calcium reabsorption and phosphate reabsorption. While acting on a bone, it increases the osteoclast activity, by which the calcium is shifted from a bone into a bloodstream, into a serum, and that will increase the calcium level. So this is the action of parathyroid on kidney, action on bone. So on a bone, it increases the osteoclast activity, increases bone resorption, which will release ionic calcium and phosphate into blood. In kidney, it will increase reabsorption of calcium, and magnesium will be lost from blood into urine. Increases the loss of phosphate also from blood into urine. So urine will contain more amount of magnesium and phosphates. It promotes the calcitriol activation. So active vitamin D3 is manufactured or stimulated formation from 25-hydroxycholecalciferol into active 125-dihydroxycholecalciferol. And this calciferol will act on a GI tract and will increase the absorption of calcium, magnesium and phosphates. And it will increase the level of calcium, magnesium and phosphate in the blood. So on a GI tract, it is an indirect action of vitamin D3, which is manufacture is increased in kidney by parathyroid. So on a bone, increases the osteoblastic number, it increases the collagen synthesis, it increases the alkaline phosphatase activity, and it increases the local growth factor called IGF, transforming factor. On a kidney, it increases calcium, magnesium reabsorption from ascending lobe. It increases chloride reabsorption from proximal tubules. It decreases phosphate reabsorption, sodium bicarbonate. So sodium, phosphate and bicarbonate are thrown out in tubules. And it also increases activity of 1-alpha hydroxylase activity. And it increases calcium absorption indirectly via 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol. So decrease in plasma phosphate level, decrease renal phosphate level. So there is an increase in 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol synthesis, which will act on intestine, increases the absorption of calcium, bone resorption will be increased, and increase in the plasma phosphate level. Also, it increases because of the reabsorption from intestine and bone resorption. Plasma calcium level is increased, parathermone secretions is decreased, urine phosphate level will decrease, and urinary calcium level will increase. That will try to compensate hypercalcemia. So this will be the together action, or we call regulation of calcium homeostasis. So parathermone will stimulate growth factor, local growth factor. That local growth factor will inhibit 1 alpha hydroxylase. It will also give rise to phosphaturia. It will have inhibition of mineralization. So it will give rise to demineralization. It will possibly stimulate the parathermone functions, and this will be the cycle by which there will be regulation of parathermone secretions. This hydroxylase decreases the inhibition, will now decrease the level of vitamin D3, and by inhibiting this vitamin D3 formation, it reduces the calcium reabsorption from bowel and try to bring back the calcium level to normal. While 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol will stimulate growth factor level or manufacture, and that will have these effects. So this is a regulation of growth factor and parathermone and vitamin D3. So parathermone gland secretes parathermones. Parathyroid gland will secrete parathermone. That parathermone will have an effect on the bone. Bone resorption, calcium level in the plasma will be increased. It will act on a kidney, increases the calcium reabsorption, phosphate will be thrown out, resorption, reabsorption will be reduced. So plasma calcium will be increased, but phosphate level will be decreased. Urinary phosphate level will increase, and this kidney will stimulate the synthesis of 125 dihydroxycholecalciferol or calcitriol, which will have effect on intestine, increases the calcium reabsorption and calcium absorption, sorry, not reabsorption, it is calcium absorption. And all these three, bone resorption, calcium reabsorption and intestinal absorption, will increase the plasma calcium level. And this plasma calcium level will inhibit the parathermone secretion and will regulate the parathermone hormone secretions. As well as it will inhibit the dehydroxylase enzyme, which will decrease the production of vitamin D3. And because of lack of vitamin D3, it will decrease the reabsorption of calcium from GI tract and try to regulate plasma calcium level. So this is that entire picture, what will happen. Vitamin D3 acting on a liver will be converted into calcidiol, which will be converted into calcitriol by parathermone, and that calcitriol will have an action on the bone for deposition of calcium, while parathermone will be there for osteoclastic activity activation and resorption of bone. So it will depend upon which is dominant, and both these conditions will try to increase the serum calcium level, and reabsorption from small intestine will also increase the serum calcium level, and parathyroid will be stimulated by hypocalcemia. If the calcium level increases, there is lack of what we call as a cyclic AMP, so parathermone secretion will be reduced, and that will try to control the parathermone secretions. So this is how the secretions is being controlled. As far as the calcium homeostasis is concerned, if the calcium level decreases, hypocalcemia, it will stimulate the parathermone secretions, and parathermone secretions will have effect on a kidney. It tries to reabsorb more and more calcium, throws out phosphates, while acting on a GI tract via vitamin D, that will increase the calcium absorption from GI tract, and bring back the calcium level to normal. Excess of calcium level will inhibit parathormone, while calcitonin is just opposite of that. Increased plasma calcium level will also inhibit calcitonin, and calcitonin has got negative effect on kidney. So reabsorption will be inhibited, so calcium will be thrown out, and on bone, mobilization of calcium will be reduced, will increase the deposition of calcium in the bone and try to reduce the plasma calcium level. So these are the two hormones, calcitonin and parathormone, will be helping homeostasis of calcium. So this is called negative feedback. So decreased plasma calcium level will stimulate thyroid C cells to increase the calcitonin, and increase plasma calcium level will inhibit the parathyroid gland to decrease the production of parathormone, while decreased plasma calcium level will stimulate the parathyroid to secrete parathormone, and which will try to elevate the plasma calcium level and bring back to normal, while increase in the plasma calcium level will inhibit parathormone and stimulates thyroid gland C cells to increase calcitonin. So you can see these are the two opposite action. So increased calcitonin will decrease the plasma calcium level by decreasing the reabsorption from GI tract and increasing the excretion in kidney by decreasing the reabsorption of calcium from tubules. And this is how the homeostasis of calcium is being maintained. So do remember, plasma calcium level will be maintained by parathyroid, that is parathormone, and thyroid gland C cells we call calcitonin. So remember that both are in opposite action. So this is that entire picture. This is that entire picture. How exactly there is a regulation. Effect on bone, effect on intestine, effect on kidney. How the calcium level, rising calcium level in the blood will inhibit the parathormone release, and parathormone release from the parathyroid gland will have now action on bone, action on intestine, and action on kidney. And in kidney, reabsorption of calcium, it will throw out potassium, phosphates. In GI tract via calcitriol, it increases the calcium absorption. And in bone, it will increase the osteoclastic activity and resorption of bone will take place. And this is how the calcium level will be brought back to normal. And stimulates what we call as parathormone will have effect on bone, effect on kidney, and effect on GI tract via active vitamin D3, and that will try to bring back the calcium level to normal, and that is how the homeostasis is being maintained. If there is a fall in calcium level, parathormone is secreted. If there is a elevation of calcium level, parathormone secretion is inhibited and calcitriol secretion will be stimulated. So fall in calcium level, parathormone stimulation, action on kidney, action on bone, action on vitamin D3. If the calcium level start rising, now parathormone will be inhibited and calcitriol secretion or formation will be also inhibited, and calcitonin secretion from thyroid C cells will be increased. So plasma calcium level will increase the calcitonin. On kidney, it will increase the calcium excretion and phosphate reabsorption will be increased. It will via calcitriol, it will stimulate intestine and calcium reabsorption will be increased and phosphate absorption. Bone, it will help in deposition of calcium into bone, and calcium level in the plasma will be reduced. So in a bone, bone formation will be increased. So calcium and phosphate release from the bone is reduced. So it will increase osteoblastic activity. In kidney, it will increase the excretion of calcium, that is by decreasing the reabsorption of calcium, and phosphate is reabsorbed. So phosphate level in blood will be elevated, calcium level in the blood will be reduced, and via acting on a calcitriol, it will decrease the reabsorption of calcium, and that is how it will try to maintain the calcium balance. So this is thyroid hormone, thyroid gland producing calcitonin. This is parathormone, which we already mentioned. So depending on the calcium level, if the calcium level is decreased, parathormone will be secreted and calcitonin will be inhibited. While if calcium level is elevated, calcitonin will be produced, and that will have action on kidney, action on bone, and action on GI tract, and that is how it will try to help to maintain the calcium level, homeostasis, how it is being maintained. Phosphate is indirectly acting. So if the plasma phosphate level reduces the renal phosphate level, which will increase the vitamin D3 formation, and that vitamin D3 now will give rise to what we call as the increased intestinal absorption of calcium, will increase the bone resorption. So plasma calcium level will be brought back to normal, and that will stimulate, or what we call as, will decrease the production of cyclic AMP, and because of decreased production of cyclic AMP by a parathyroid cells or chief cells, there will be decreased secretion of parathormone, and because of decreased secretion of parathormone, urinary calcium level will be increased and urinary phosphate level will be reduced. Phosphate will be reabsorbed from kidney, and you will try to have an elevation of phosphate level by reabsorption from kidney, and bone will be resorbed. So osteoclastic activity will be activated, and you will have a phosphate thrown out in a blood, and by this it will try to regulate back the phosphate level. So this is how the plasma phosphate level is being there. So decrease in plasma phosphate level, there is associated increase in plasma calcium level, and that is how it is acting via decreasing the parathormone level, and on a kidney by activating vitamin D3, and that activated vitamin D3 is going to have absorption of phosphate being increased from intestine. Calcium absorption from intestine will be also increased. So that particular calcium will have a no change in a plasma calcium level, because this particular calcium will be thrown out more in a kidney. So that will be try to reduce your calcium level, while a parathormone decrease will decrease the calcium reabsorption from kidney, so calcium will be thrown out, so urinary calcium level will increase. So plasma calcium level is not changed. This will try to increase your plasma calcium level, this will try to decrease your plasma calcium level, and that is how the balance is being maintained. And so phosphate level is only affected because by parathormone acting on a kidney, phosphate is reabsorbed, and from intestine phosphate is reabsorbed, that will try to increase your phosphate level, and this is how the regulation of phosphate takes place. And this is vitamin D3. I have already discussed vitamin D3, how it is converted, how it is acting on a kidney. It will be acting on a kidney indirectly. From a kidney, calcitriol will act on an intestine, bone, and renal. So on an intestine, it will increase the absorption of calcium, and phosphate is not reabsorbed. On a bone, osteoclastic activity will be increased, and it will pour out phosphate into blood, and calcium will be deposited in bone, while in kidney it will decrease the reabsorption of calcium, and hence the calcium will be thrown out. So phosphate decreases calcium, and phosphate excretion will be also increased. Vitamin D metabolism. This is vitamin D as a hormone, calcitriol. This is vitamin D has got multiple effect. It has got effect on bone. It has effect on GI tract. It has effect on immune cells, pancreas. It increases the insulin secretions. It is on parathyroid gland, on a skin, on a kidney, etc. It improves the calcium reabsorption, and also it increases the calcium and phosphate levels. On a bone, it increases the growth and development, remodeling, and maintenance of minerals homeostasis. It will act on a gut, increases the calcium absorption and phosphate absorption. On immune system, it increases the immunity, and on pancreas, it will increase the insulin production. So it has got multiple effect. We'll not be discussing at present. Sometime we'll be discussing on vitamin D3 in detail. So 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted to vitamin D3, which will be converted further by 25 hydroxylase into 25 dehydroxy, and then finally by 1 alpha hydroxylase enzyme, it will be converted into active vitamin D3, or we call calcitriol, and that will have effect on kidney, increases the calcium reabsorption, phosphate reabsorption, bone resorption, parathyroid secretion will be reduced, and it inhibits the own synthesis in kidney. Calcitonin we already discussed. It is secreted from parafollicular cells, we call C cells of thyroid gland, and it will be stimulated if the person gets hypercalcemia. So because of hypercalcemia, the calcitonin will be secreted, and calcitonin receptor are found in bone and kidney. In a bone, it will increase the activity of osteoclast and also increases the calcium in urine. That is by acting on a kidney. So osteoclast numbers are increased, bone resorption will take place, calcium will be shifted from bone into blood, and on a kidney, it will decrease the absorption of calcium, by which it will throw out calcium in urine. So urinary calcium level will be increased. So that is the action of calcitonin, and calcitonin will take part in homeostasis of calcium. We have already shown you the slide before. So in a renal destruction, there is a decreased vitamin D3. So because of decreased vitamin D3, there is a decreased calcium absorption and phosphate absorption. So that will give rise to decreased calcium level. And because of decreased calcium level, you will have an increased parathyroid production. And this increased parathyroid production will increase the bone resorption. And from the bone, the calcium will be shifted back into blood, and it will try to maintain your calcium level. And because of the renal destruction, there is an increased phosphate retention, and this increased phosphate retention will also have an effect on serum calcium level indirectly via acting on calcitonin as well as acting on vitamin D3, because increased serum phosphate level will decrease vitamin D3 production, and finally it will increase bone resorption. So in a bone you will start getting decreased mineralization, and you will have a small cyst formations. Now this particular parathyroid gland can undergo increase in the size, we call hyperplasia, or it can undergo the formation of adenomatous tissue, or it can be malignant. Malignant parathyroid gland are rare, but hyperplasia and adenoma is very common, and it will end up with hyperparathyroidism. If there is a destruction of a parathyroid gland, then you can end up with a hypoparathyroidism. We'll be discussing separately those. So investigation for parathyroid disorders, first investigation is serum calcium. So usually in a case of a hyperparathyroidism, serum calcium level is elevated, while in a case of a hypoparathyroidism, serum calcium in hyperparathyroidism, serum calcium level is elevated, phosphate level is low, while in a case of a hypoparathyroidism, serum calcium level is low and phosphate level is high. If you estimate the parathyroid level, parathyroid level in case of a pure primary hyperparathyroidism, phosphate level will be elevated, but in a secondary, the phosphate level slowly starts getting elevated, and in a autonomous, phosphate level is not inhibited by serum calcium level. Other tests, albumin, phosphates, blood urea creatinine to find out a secondary cause of hyperparathyroidism, 24 urinary calcium level and bone mineral density is very useful, and radiological study of bone is also very important. So non-invasive procedures for identifying the parathyroid tumors etc. we call ultrasonography. You can go for a radioactive studies, thallium scan, technetium scan, computed tomography or CT scan or MRI. Invasive procedure like a fine needle aspiration to find out the histopathological structure of parathyroid tumors. Selective arteriography and digital subtraction angiography. Selective venous sampling for parathyroid hormone assay to find out exactly which parathyroid gland is having what type of secretions. Arterial injection of selenium and try to identify intraoperative methods like ultrasounds, methylene blue study, urinary adenosine monophosphate study, and parathyroid hormone level during operative procedures. This is technetium scan, etc. So here I end my lecture on introductory part of a parathyroid gland. Hope it will be helpful to you.